Let me guess, you tried hiring a couple of times and they probably didn't work out. Now nobody wants to work anymore. Am I right? What if I told you that the problem was not the workforce, but the system itself that's within your business? I believe that we do not have a shortage of talent in the marketplace. I feel that we have a great shortage of leadership and systems within our vehicle wrap businesses. So if you stick around for this full video, you will not only gain clarity on possibly some insights of struggles that you might be having with your hiring systems and processes, but also I'm going to be breaking down 3 frameworks depending on where you are in your business journey on exactly how I would go about hiring your future talent for your business. So essentially the very first thing that I kind of just want to touch base on is the story or the lie potentially, or the coping mechanism that we constantly tell ourselves while we are trying to replace ourselves in our business. And essentially the biggest one is that nobody wants to work anymore. And that's basically that you are tired and fed up of trying to attract the right people within your business. I've said this time and time again, and so I'll say it again, is what are you doing to attract the talent that you want? Are you really as good as you think that you are to have somebody fill in your role? And then what opportunity would that really create? Is there really an opportunity for this person that you're hiring? Or are we potentially coming from a place of entitlement as the owner that, oh, we have this awesome, fantastic opportunity for somebody, but nobody wants to take it? Is it really all that good? It can be, but right now in the current situation that you are in your business, is it really? And that's something that we should be striving for. And constantly audit yourself, because usually if we're getting the same feedback loop over and over and over again, we kind of need to look in the mirror, and typically it's our fault. So before we get started, I basically want to kind of go through some quotes or some stories in the translation of really what that excuse or story means. Nobody wants to work anymore. Basically, you're just not attracting the right people, and frankly, you're just tired of trying. If I train them, they'll just leave and start their own thing. Essentially, this just means that you would rather stay in control than to invest in somebody that might outgrow you. This is actually coming from a place of scarcity and or ego. It's easier if I just do it myself. This basically just means that you don't have a process or the patience to delegate or build somebody up. I'll dive into that a little bit later. I can't find anybody who cares as much as I do. Essentially, you're just saying that you haven't built a culture or communicated what really matters within this workplace when you are hiring somebody, and hold them accountable to that. Everybody that I hire ends up being a dud. Basically, you're just saying that you don't have any systems for your hiring structure in the first place. Basically, you're just guessing and hoping that it sticks. People are lazy these days. Basically, you're just kind of projecting your burnout on everybody else. You can't really find any good help anymore. This is kind of a repeat, but basically, I've just stopped trying to improve my recruiting process. They looked great in the interview, but they didn't perform. I mean, basically, you're just stating that you don't have a trial period with clear performance benchmarks and or strong accountability. I can't afford to hire right now. Translation. I'm afraid of letting go of control or investing in the growth, and they just don't get it. What the hell is it? You have no clear definition of what the focal point is for the job description, and or what accountability measures for that person to guide themselves against. So I want to tell you a quick story. I had an employee at a Jiffy Lube, and he basically was getting an oil change on one of our work vehicles, and for one of our staff members. And there was a young man who was working there that was not happy with his current situation. That young man said, hey, I actually have a huge interest in wanting to wrap cars. And so essentially one of my staff members, Riley, actually was like, hey, well, why don't you just stop by the shop then and let's see what you got? And sure enough, this person ended up stopping by. I showed him our roadmap to 100K. I did I do hands-on interviews with all of the potential installers that we do, and I give very minor coaching through it just to see how they operate under direction. I don't really care how good they do entirely on the hand-eye coordination, but I care more about how do they receive what I'm trying to explain to them and how well do they take direction. Ended up hiring a young man. I showed him his accountability measures for 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And essentially, he went home every single day. He took scrap material home and he worked on his own car. And he took whatever he learned that day and he drilled it even at home. In probably 3 months, he was really dangerous. 6 months, extremely dangerous. 1 year on his own. And at year 2, he's wrapping mid-roof sprinters in 12 to 15 hours, basically 1 unit almost every day or day and a half. It does not take nearly as long as we try to think that it is, because oftentimes whenever we're hiring, let's just say an installer, this is a very common position that a lot of people want to try to fill. This is the skilled position in our industry, right? I believe it's kind of an ego thing that we kind of play ourselves up a little bit. Does it take a long time to refine the craft of vehicle wrapping? Absolutely. I will never take that away from anybody. You are constantly learning, even many years down the road. But for an installer to be dangerous enough that with your help to make a return on investment, it doesn't take that long. It takes really 3 to 6 months. And if they're still burning money from you after 3 to 6 months, then you should probably terminate them and find somebody else. So my point in saying this is that sometimes we create the story of it takes 1 to 2 years for a vehicle wrap installer to replace me, blah, blah, blah. Like, stop thinking about it like that and look at how much time can I get back? Can I have this installer install 80% of this vehicle for me? Can they install 50% of this vehicle? And if they can, what can I do extra for that 50% time that I'm not having to touch the vehicle for that time frame? If you are telling yourself one of these stories that have kind of come out, or maybe I missed one, define it. Why are you telling yourself that story? What is the actual translation, or what is the feedback loop that you were getting, and how can you solve it? The more questions you ask yourself and generate answers for, that is what being a business owner is this feedback loop is telling me something. What can I extract out of it? And just make sure that you remember that hiring is a skill. It's very much like installing. You can't expect an installer to be dangerous on a vehicle by whatever timeline that might be. You shouldn't expect yourself to be perfect on hiring the right person even 3, 4, 5, 6 times in. It takes practice. It takes learning and clarifying, who do I really want? And I actually heard that from Austin Smith with 201 Wraps and Pain is Dead. He had a lot of killers on his team really early on. And then at one point in his business, they all left to go start their own businesses. And we were having a conversation. I just said, man, that must really suck losing all those rock stars. And he goes, well, I mean, it does. But at the same time, it showed me what team did I really want on my staff. Now, that wasn't putting down the other people, but it gave him the opportunity to try and test other different personalities to define what he actually wanted his team to look like. Because before that, he just, had the right people. And I thought that was pretty interesting and profound. And so to close off this section, basically, I just want to say that, if we're saying that nobody wants to work anymore, just remember that you haven't even built a real system for somebody to actually succeed and thrive within your workplace. And if you have built one, audit it and make sure that it is good enough, because you should be constantly refining these processes as you go. And if it fails, cool. What could have been done? Let's do it better. Moving on. Recruiting is essentially nonstop. There are a huge misconception that you start posting an ad whenever you need the person. Wrong. Typically, by the time you need somebody, you're already 2, 3, 4 months late. We are very slow to hire people, and we also don't treat this as, or many business owners don't treat this as a practice that should be enrolling people at all times. I literally yesterday here in Mexico. I mean, not even joking. Even here in Mexico, I went and got a crepe at Walmart, and there was a young man. I was trying to speak my broken Spanish to him, and he changed to English. And this young man had no accent. Like, I was like, man, where'd you pick up your English at? And I know this is off topic, but the same principle applies. So follow me here. He goes, well, American pop culture basically taught me all the English. I was like, cool. So that means that you like TV shows or movies? He goes, I love movies. I was like, cool. I was like, I grew up in a video store, and we got to talking. And he goes, yeah, I was going to school to be a story writer. And I was like, that's intriguing. I was like, well, do you do any video editing or anything like that? And he's like, well, I kind of tinker, but I don't have a lot of tools. I work for the Mexican peso, and I do my best with what I have. And I just was like, man, this guy has not said one negative thing. He has amazing character. What could he be if he had some tools, a little bit of financing, a potential opportunity, if you will? That is what we are as business owners, as opportunity creators. And I took his number down. I don't need him right now. But if I ever got to the point where I got tired of editing these videos, or I didn't have the time to edit these videos, or I felt that he could do better than me at editing these videos, and I had the actual capital to allocate to it, then guess who's going to get a phone call? This young man named Nate that I just met in front of Walmart yesterday. And I could change his life. So very much like my employee that was at the oil change station, my team had their eyes up. That's because I trained them to have their eyes up for good people. I always have my eyes up. If I'm in town near my shop and there's a waiter that's crushing it, I might ask them what their goals and aspirations are. And I might go ahead and start profiling that individual right now, because the people that you really want already have jobs. You don't want somebody who doesn't have a job. They're already crushing it at whatever they do. They might even be happy there, but they don't realize they could be happier with you. Or they could be unhappy and they could be rock stars as well. And so it's your responsibility to constantly be recruiting, and not just with ads online or posting in a Facebook group thinking that you're going to find this person. Like, no, you are always hiring and you are always prospecting with all the communications that you'd have in your normal everyday life. Now, in regards to posting ads, I firmly believe WiseHire is my favorite platform because it posts on all of Indeed, Glassdoor, and all these other little places. It's so expensive. I think it's like $200 or $250 a month, but it's really cool because you can implement some automations and some tools to where you can kind of build some hoops for people to jump through and create a process of which resumes do you even look at. So for example, when we hired for our last administrative position, we had like over 250 applicants. I probably only looked at 17 resumes because those are the people that met the conditions that I set in place. With all that said, basically the principle here is that you should always be building a bench. I'll give you a very small example that maybe you have this employee, and maybe this employee, especially like when you're in that 1 to 5 employee range, typically you have a Swiss Army knife guy. I had a Swiss Army knife guy, and it took me way too long to terminate him. This guy's awesome. He went and started his own business. I love the guy to death, but I needed to terminate him because of culture issues. But he kind of had me bent over the barrel for a little while because there was so many things that he could do. And so me terminating him was like basically kind of like terminating, it wasn't just terminating one employee, it was terminating like a half employee in like 4 different positions. But the only reason why that was hard is because I had nobody to fill his gaps. Whereas if you look at like maybe you're into sports, your second string player is probably pretty close in many cases to your first string player. And so if you had a backup and first string player was acting up or falling out of line, or maybe they had a moral compass issue and they started going against your core values in your business, you could terminate that person immediately and have zero emotional response to it. Other than, I can't believe they did that. But as far as like your concern and worry of, oh my gosh, like how am I going to facilitate all these installs? Or oh my gosh, how am I going to talk to all my customers, or whatever it may be? You're not concerned because you already have a backlog of data of people that could fill in that role, and then you just hand them your onboarding systems to get going. That's it. It's not an emotional situation if you have people behind them to fill in the gaps. And so moving along with that, my next essential topic is basically the fear of training somebody. You hear so often, man, I don't like training my competition. I don't want to train somebody up for them to leave and go be my competition, whatever it is. There's literally, just Google it. Only 1% of people in the United States actually want to be a business owner. And so most people just want a good, stable job where they are taken care of and have great leadership and clarity, and they want to feel like they fit within the vision of whatever that is under that roof. So statistically, you're wrong. Like, yeah, maybe they do leave and go start a business, but were they really even the right fit in the first place? And or, fantastic, you have proven to yourself, let's just say, thinking in abundance here, that you can develop a skilled installer that can go do great things. So why don't you team up with that individual? And frankly, this just means you had poor leadership skills if they surprise you and leave in many cases. You should be having active enough conversations with the individuals that you kind of, for the most part, know what headspace they're in. I had an employee that wanted to start a small business, so I hired him anyway. And while he was under my wing, I trained him on small things on how to run a small business. He's now running a small business. Awesome. That's it. It was mutual. Nobody lost, everybody won. So have harder conversations and deeper conversations with your staff so you know where they're at. What are their goals? What is that man's or woman's 5-year goal that you are hiring? Where do they see themselves? Do they see themselves under your vision? Or do they see themselves starting their own business? Great. Work for me for 7 years. I'll teach you everything I know. You can go start your own shop. In fact, I will fund it and we will be business partners because maybe they want to live in a different state. Now you have these strategic advantages as the business owner, and now you're gaining leverage on life. You're investing. Like, you can make this a win-win regardless if they stay or leave. Period. So don't be concerned with people leaving, because there's a great quote from Peter Drucker, and it's basically, what if we train them and they leave? And the answer was, what if we don't train them and they stay? So you should never strive for mediocrity, and you should never not do something just because of fear that maybe they don't stay. You should just make sure that you do your best to create an environment that they want to stay in. So with all of that being said, let's hop into our 3 frameworks of hiring processes, depending on where you are and or who you are hiring. So let's say you have absolutely 0 systems around hiring in your business. The very first thing that you should do is, we're going to call it build, measure, adjust. Let's say you hire a table worker to run the table/production position of your company. You essentially need to, as you're training them, record and document the entire everything that you're doing. Just record it. This is in the world of AI, you talking out loud to somebody. If you're using Loom.com and you pay for the Pro, it's very cheap. It's like $15 a month. You legitimately can, everything that you're saying, get a transcription for, and then you can load that day of transcription into ChatGPT and say, these are my conversations training a staff member. This is day 1. Can you please bullet point the objectives of what we instructed them to do and create a clear and concise role for day 1 on the job? It works. Like, it sounds overly simple, but it works. And so with this build, measure, adjust framework, essentially what you're doing is every single day that employee comes to you and asks you a question, before you answer the question, you write the question down, because this is going to be your FAQ for the position. And eventually you'll have a great FAQ for the position to where on day 1 on your next employee, here's the FAQ for this position. There's all the standard questions that most people ask. Refer to the sheet first, or refer to this library of videos. that correlates with this said sheet and see if you can solve it for yourself. In the event that you cannot solve it for yourself and you've exhausted this resource, then you can come to me and ask me questions. So now you're finding out, can they follow instructions? Can they solve problems for themselves? Because if they come to you with a question, and the first question you ask that employee or that new hire is, did you refer to the sheet? No, I just wanted to come to you to get it done. Wrong. Hey, as we stated when we hired you, the first thing that you're going to do is refer to this FAQ and make sure that it can't be answered here. Fantastic. So, week 1 and 2 of hiring on this process is essentially just trial task and record whatever data you can as you go. From there, week 3 to 6, you're going to measure what still seems to be unclear, what gets asked over and over and over, and maybe you're answering it, but not in a comprehensive way that doesn't allocate memory to it. So a lot of times when we are instructing somebody, we forget that we're introducing somebody to a potential item that they have no clue or experience around. And so we're actually skipping steps when we're operationalizing these tasks. And so we're skipping memory step 4, and then all of a sudden step 7's in our memory, so we skip a step. And it's not very linear for the end user that's receiving this worksheet. Just keep refining this until you get it solved. There's a really cool method behind this that I heard. I don't remember who it was, so I can't quote them. But basically, if you're writing out the steps, then if you want to audit it and you want to make sure that you're not missing any steps, then only like you make a rule where you perform the task, but you can only perform the task to the steps that are down. Meaning, if it's not on the paper, you're operating without memory, you can't continue. So if it was that you need to drop the lever down on the printer and that step wasn't on the list, then it needs to be added. And so you'll find your holes that way by doing it outside of memory. And then week 7 to 12, I mean, basically we're getting to our 90-day situation. Ask for feedback. Every single day, hey, what could I have done better for you today to ensure that you had the tools that you needed to perform the task that I'm asking of you? That is so important. Because you might be thinking you're doing great, but everybody especially has different comprehension levels. They could understand things their unique way, and it's your job to navigate and understand how they learn, and then your job to also make sure that you are delivering the message in a way for them to succeed. During that time, you're basically you're developing these, and they're going to be very crude at first. But as you keep going, maybe that person wasn't the right fit. The odds that you're going to bat 100% on the first hire that you hire, and you also don't have systems and processes, like during that second month, you really know whether that person's the right person or not. But you could also argue, like, are you failing them? I would say no greater than 90 days. If you continue to operate and they just aren't making... If they're not operating to a level where there's at least a break even or a return on investment yet, then it's time to terminate that person, and that's okay. And then we start over and we hand what we built during this process to the next person. And we just audit the feedback loop again, and we keep repeating this process. And yes, you might, as a leader, be failing these individuals. You might be. But the most important part is that you are actively engaged in making it better to ensure that somebody in the future you're not going to fail. And then eventually it no longer becomes a system problem, it just becomes a people problem. And if it becomes a people problem, then you can solve that by replacing people with people. And that sounds heartless, but that's just true. Like it's either a systems problem or a people problem, but usually it's a systems problem. And then once you arrive at the point that the systems problems are dialed, then it's just a people problem. So let's say you're a little more intermediate. You've been hiring people. You're probably somewhere between the 3 and 9 employee situation. Greatly varies. And you're operating on more of a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding framework, okay? On days 1 through 30, you're essentially introducing to these individuals the culture, the SOPs, and shadowing other staff members with daily and or weekly check-ins. I feel that daily check-ins are stronger, especially on the first 14 days. I am very tight, specifically on the installer role, on the first 14 to 30 days. And the reason why is I want to see coachability. I want to see how well do they deal with working on their own. So what I mean by this is I have enough structure on the training process where day one, they have their action steps and or their deliverables for day one. They also have their action steps and deliverables for what is expected of them for their test on Friday. So on our first 30 days, we have a test every Friday that goes out to this individual, and if they can't pass a test, they're terminated. Now, again, sounds heartless, but it's not. What it is I know for a fact that I am willing to provide the systems and the tools to the individual to succeed. As long as they follow the direction and leverage the tools that we're giving them and they're coachable, they will succeed. It's impossible for them to fail. And then every single day is my responsibility at the end of the day to check in with them. What, based on what you have seen, do you not understand, or what are you struggling with? Fantastic. Let's brush on that. So from 4 to 5 o'clock, there's somebody that's responsible with ensuring that that individual understands that they're on track for Friday. Same thing for week 2, week 3, week 4. I typically like to do a big, like 14-day meet and let them know how they're doing. If they are still not on track by day 30, terminate it. Like again, we have multiple termination checkpoints, but this way it sucks. It sucks terminating people, but it also sucks wasting money and wasting, more importantly, a non-refundable resource, time, their time and yours. So having these things in place and the accountability to back it is one of the best things ever, because now you don't have to come from a state of emotion. It is a little frustrating having to go back to the drawing board and hire again, but when it finally clicks, it's amazing. It's the best thing on the planet. It literally is. There's a reason why I'm able to not be in my shop for 2 years, and it's because we did this process over and over and over and over and over until we made the right team. And I've got some killers on my team, let me tell you. So day 31 through 60 is essentially integrating. Like now they are meshing into the company. They understand they're dangerous enough with whatever role that they're performing, and they can basically handle light tasks, and we can go ahead and start celebrating some early wins. And then from day 61 to 90, like they understand the assignment. They now have full accountability for the assignments that they're given. This does not mean that I'm saying that I want somebody to fully wrap a car on day 61. But month 1 of their training was hoods, fenders, doors, and back doors, as long as they weren't advanced panels. Like there's just some that stand out, like a Tacoma hood or something, right? But for the most part, they're dangerous. They're 60 to 80% there on these simpler panels, which then frees up time for whoever the superior installer and or myself is to do other tasks and duties. So it's your job to figure out what they are due to know by day 60. But from 60 to 90, it is that individual's job to own that, meaning they are not going to get assistance on wrapping a hood. They're going to do it completely solo. They're not going to get assistance on door panels and fenders. They are going to do it solo. And they will own the outcome with their name on it of whatever occurs on that. Whether it's administrative duties, it's their duty to be able to take calls and set appointments for the salesperson and or you to make the sale. So you define what it is that they need to be doing. I'm giving you examples, but from day 61 to 90, they own them entirely. And if you notice that they're constantly failing at the task, then they might not be it. And again, we are getting to the next person as quickly as possible to ensure we are not wasting time, energy, and money. And last but not least, my favorite framework is the A player. So this is where you're trying to hire a skill position. I think a lot of people do this wrong. If you are trying to hire an installer that has 10 years of experience, cool, fantastic. Literally, all you're going to do is say, these are our expectations. Here's the description in its entirety for your job based on their skills. You're going to create a scorecard in which you will score them weekly based on measurable results. What do I mean by this? If it's an administrative person, what is our missed call rate? Like, it's easy. They might not have all the answers, but they can answer the phone, right? So do we have a percentage of missed calls that we're allow? Mine shop's 10%. If it starts peaking up to 20%, we have a problem. The problem would be either somebody's not answering the phone or we need another administrator. So that's my duty to figure out that problem. But 10% missed calls on our calls, I want it less than that. So are they answering the calls? Are they calling customers back? Are we calling leads within 24 hours? These are all KPIs that I'm tracking to define whether this individual is doing a good job or not. I can't just go to somebody and say, hey, you suck. And they're like, I suck at what? Like, you need to make it very clear what their duties are and what you are judging them by. And it needs to come from a state of data, not emotion, especially when it comes to A players. If it's an A player installer, then I could say, okay, great. I currently have to install all the vehicles in my shop. If I'm hiring you, I expect that if I have the capacity for 4 vehicles a week, I expect you to do 3 of those 4. Do you agree? They're like, yes, great, fantastic. Then you audit whether that individual is actually freeing you up on the bandwidth of those 4 vehicles a week at the agreed upon 3. And then you take that feedback and say, if no, why? Is it because they're slow? Is it because maybe the vehicles are coming in dirty and we need to actually adjust our process here? You can start asking better questions around things when you start defining what it is that you want. And so a good example would be like a general manager, somebody that needs to handle the logistics within the business, right? So you could ask that individual, especially if they're a rock star or a killer, you could be like, in the next 90 days, how are you going to increase the performance of the shop? And then willingly give them data of what you're struggling with. Let them build you a plan of exactly what will be done. Guess what? We're going to use that plan to judge them by. So if it's that you currently have sales, but for some reason you're falling behind on the logistics of things because the print department can't produce enough wraps, then what is their plan to produce enough wraps to ensure that we fill the pipeline and create a higher velocity of cash? Like, let them build the plan and then just hold them accountable for it as long as that's what you agree to. And a lot of times they will have a better plan than you will because they might be better at it. You care more, but they might be better at the individual role because that's where all of their bandwidth goes. Or maybe even they're lesser than you, but the bigger point is that all of their attention goes into that department, whereas you're constantly changing hats as the business owner and you're not really serving people to the highest level. So I'm going to end it with this. A lot of people say, nobody can do it as good as me. I promise you, you're just not busy enough. I got to the point, I was making great money and I had a great business, but it was all on my shoulders. And there came a point that I literally was upset at customers for walking in my door buying product from me because that meant that it took away from my install in the back that I had a specific deadline for. And both were equally as important. So there will come a time where you will get tired of it and you will not leverage things. And also, I cannot express to you how important it is to do the hard work now of trying to learn this hiring skill. Because if you really pay attention, there have been some of the OGs in this game who never learned these skills. They never gained leverage on their skill set. They never passed down the torch to another person. And there might become a time where it might be hard now, but it gets easier later as you refine your skills. But if you don't refine your skills now, as you get older, that floor keeps getting further away. Or maybe you get arthritis in your hand. Or maybe you have an accident. Or God forbid you get sick. There will come a time where you will pay for not taking action today on getting leverage on your business and learning how to multiply your efforts rather than keeping them all to yourselves. So I hope this video is valuable to everybody. If you want to learn more, listen, reach out to us about Wrap Shop Academy. We're trying to standardize the industry. Myself, John Duver, and Dan Workman. There's a free booking link below if you just want a quick chat with me. There's no strings attached. I will not pitch you on anything. I'm literally there just to be who I needed when I was coming up through this wrap industry. And I went through a lot of pain and grief. And if I could help just one person not go through the same pain and grief that I went through, then my job is done. That's why we're so passionate about this. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.